Hi, so we are going to be doing a database tutorial today. This is what I'd like you to watch, start your research log, and then when we come into class, I am going to go over any questions and redo this again in class. Usually it takes a couple times of kind of doing it yourself, seeing it modeled for it to become comfortable, but it's definitely very easy. It does get more complicated as you continue your education, but for the purpose of this class, my job and goal is just to teach you the basics, how to find academic research that's current and based off of your research needs. So we're going to be first looking at the databases through APU. So make sure you're logged in, and this works best if you could go ahead and do this along with me. So whether that means having a partial screen of this going that you pause, or having this going on your phone while you research on your paper, go ahead and pause right now and get situated. Go to apu.edu/library and we'll get started. So once you are at apu.edu/library, you're going to scroll down, click on Articles and Databases, click on View All Databases. Academic Search Premier is a great starting point and usually will suffice definitely in this class. But all of these, just for as you know, as you go in the future, some of them are specific towards different disciplines. So, if you're in the sciences or education or psych, you'll be wanting to utilize specific ones in other classes. But for the purpose of this paper in this class, we are just clicking on Academic Search Premier. It's the third one down. This is also linked with EBSCO. If you've ever heard of that, you'll see EBSCO right here. If you would like to choose more than one database, you go to Choose Database and you click additional ones. I would start with just the one, and if you're not finding stuff, try other databases. There's a description right here that says what they're best used for, what kind of articles are published in there, etc. So let's see. I'll model race and ethnicity and humor. So you're going to be doing your database based off of just right now, preliminary, whatever you're thinking that you might be interested in for your research paper. So I'm going to start off with utilizing OR a lot, right? Since I don't really know, or at this point you wouldn't really know what exactly are the subject terms. Leave this right here. It automatically does keywords. That's good for when you're not really sure what authors are indexing, and indexing is the same thing as like a hashtag, right? So at the end of an academic article, authors will use subject terms that work as hashtags. You click on them, everyone who's ever written about that uses that. So at this point, beginning stages, we don't know. So we're going to leave it blank, which automatically does default keyword. I'm going to put race or ethnic, and then these are very helpful. I'm going to see, I'm going to try race, ethnicity, or minority, and humor, or humor with an O-U-R is the British way of spelling it. So I usually do a combination of both, because sometimes there are articles outside of the US. Yeah, so I'm going to do humor or humor. This said the same, I just said it different for the distinction. Or comedy or laughter, right? So I use a lot of the ors because I'm not sure at this point, but I made sure to do and, because I don't want articles just on race and then articles just on humor. I need the intersection of them both. At this point, I want you to find all of my search terms. So they will say, you'll find all the ones that you put this and that, right? If you put or, they're just looking for any of those. In the beginning stages, sometimes it's helpful to put apply related words if you're not searching the subject terms, because then it'll help you out saying, oh, they also use this term. Don't limit full text because it will show you any articles that's out there, even if it's outside of EBSCO hosts, or even if APU doesn't have it, they'll give it to you I've had them give it to me a couple hours later sometimes, but it definitely is worth it. You need to click scholarly peer reviewed. That's very important. So make sure every time you're clicking scholarly peer reviewed, you need to have 5 peer reviewed articles. And that's it. Okay. So we are ready to search. And know that so much of this is trial and error. Like, I have done this a lot, so I'm kind of like expediting the process. So when you sit down to do this, if it's not as simple as mine, know that like I teach a class and I've gone through several programs where I've had to do database research. So much of learning this, especially your first research paper doing database research, is trial and error, figuring out those subject terms. So that's where the log comes in handy. You're going to be adding to that. I have you turn it in like initial searches, but I'm sure after you turn that in, guaranteed your sources will be changing. You'll be adding to them. The most important thing that you note in the log is the subject terms, right? You want to get a list of subject terms that get to the list, give you a list of articles that you're interested in doing in your paper, right? That are relevant to the issue, specific question you're exploring. So let's take a look at what I found. How I'm going to expedite like this process right here because I don't want it to be a half-hour video. I would scan through the first couple pages of titles. If you don't find anything in the first couple of pages, in the first 3 pages, I would, like, that is any interest to you, obviously you'll find things. I would play up with the search terms a little bit. But usually you'll find stuff in the beginning you like. Just pick based off of subject titles right now. So if you click right here, if the title looks good, go ahead and read the abstract. And if the abstract looks like something that you want to, that's similar to your research at this point, go ahead and add it. It adds it to your folder right here. If you create, where it says sign in, if you create an account through EBSCOs, you will save this for you. It's very easy. It's very free. I recommend you do it. However, if you do not do it, you need to remember to do something with this list, which I'll model in a second, at the end of your research, because it does not automatically save unless you have an account. So remember that. I've had a lot of students be frustrated. So I'm just going to pick, and I'm not reading them right now to show you, but I'm picking based off of titles and then the abstract. And so some of them I'm sure will be great. Others might be like, that's not what I'm talking about at all, right? And so then after you have a decent list, how you revise it from there, and you see, let me show you. So if you go to your folder, this will show you if you're at your computer, you want to print them, or if you want to email all of them, or if you know for sure you like an article, I would suggest that you save it right then on your computer in a specified folder. I love using Google Drive, having folders with my articles there, just because you don't have to have your computer. You could work on it anywhere, right? And if you get a virus, computer crashes, no harm, no foul. I mean, it still sucks, but you didn't lose your whole paper, right? From there, to narrow down sources, read the introduction and the conclusion paragraphs, and then you'll be able to eliminate, so this is what I am going to talk about. You don't need to get to that final step with what you're turning in for the research log. That's mostly just, yes, so I've read the abstract and I've written down the subject terms. I'm not quite sure exactly what I'm going to write about yet, but I think I'm going to be tapping into this conversation. So that's the goal with the research log. But as you continue, you want to minimize, you want to read basically only the articles, because they're anywhere from like 10 to 30 pages of academic jargon. You want to only read the articles you're actually doing you're actually going to be using, right? So if you read the titles, then the abstracts, intros, conclusions, you're usually left with a list of, yeah, so these are the articles that I'm going to be reading. And then I've put in the research paper pacing. When you need to start reading these articles, they always take longer than students think. So I could not more strongly encourage you to follow the research paper pacing guide. So this is like the main way to find database peer-reviewed articles. I like to use Google Scholar. It gives you a little bit more like less academic, less peer-reviewed, the whole bunch. You need to weed through them to make sure that they're actual like academic peer-reviewed articles. But there's definitely good stuff in here, but it's just not like everything you're looking at is something potentially you can use. So for me personally, I make sure when you like log into APU first and then go to Google Scholar, and you should see your picture or your name right here. That shows that you have access to Google Scholar through APU's databases. If you don't do this, most of the stuff you don't have access to. So just make sure you're logged in. I like to see any that's what am I looking for? The seminal pieces that if you're talking about this issue, you better be quoting this article when I'm doing my research. So I'll type in, I did gender and stand-up, another research topic, right? Completely different. But after I do my initial research in APU, and this part right here is optional. Google Scholar is definitely not as user-friendly when it comes to finding the peer review one. So you're required definitely to use the APU database, what I just showed you. What is here is just to add to helpful if you're not finding anything, or you want to make sure you find those articles that all the scholars are quoting, right? So what I'm looking for is articles that says cited by like over 1,000 people. That means that I'm going to look to see, are these topics or these issues that I'm going to talk about? If they are, I definitely want to get these articles. The ones that you have access to, it'll say like PDF or HTML right here. If you don't have access through it, you will see nothing right here. Okay. All right. So that's where I want to cut off for this. Remind me in class to talk about, if I forget, requesting articles that say you really like this one, but you don't have that. APU doesn't have it. I'll show you how to request that. Okay?